Welcome back, everybody. Thanks for joining me again. Today I have the Honorable Bob Finley. We've become friends recently. A lot of history, a lot of knowledge, and so let's get into it. How you been, Bob?
I've been good. How about you?
Been doing good. Now, the first thing I want to ask you, we might be repeating some stuff, but this is my YouTube channel, so we're gonna get some good stuff out of you, even though other people have heard, from you before. And
Yeah.
I listen to that stuff too, man. I try and catch everything that I can. There's a lot of
Mm-hmm.
YouTube channels coming around. But
Right.
how'd you get started in the dogs?
Well, like I said before, my dad had them all during the years, and they was just pets. They're just snake killers and hog hunters and that sort of stuff and everything. But until I went in the Marines, and I was stationed in Jacksonville, Florida, and I got mixed up with some old boys down there. The guy Purvis was the name actually, and they was from Folkestone. And I got mixed up with them and just old, like I say, hog hunters. And then we got, playing with a few, first one thing and another. And I got a couple of them old dogs, and they was, hog dogs, but they was pretty good old dogs. And that's actually how I got started in it. And then after I got out of the Marines, I started going up to around North Carolina and buying some, there was no posse dogs, but I wasn't buying them directly from them. I was buying them from the Johnson boys up there. And, who they were, I don't remember who they were, but they had La Paz dogs, and I was getting the papers, and that's how I got started.
Right, right. Now you originally from Georgia, or were you from
Yeah.
Carolinas?
No, I'm from Georgia, really about 10 miles off South Carolina line on 85, and that's where I'm located.
Oh, okay.
In Georgia.
And how'd you get a hold of or come to know the Johnson boys?
Well, I really don't remember. I was, at the time I was going up there, and I was kind of associated with Lonzo Pratt and some of those. I just got good friends of mine I got to know was Rex Bird and some of those, and Rex had been in a while, and Rex was good friends with Howard Teal and some of those boys, and Lester Hughes and some of those boys, and William Cable I got to know, and so I just got to know a few of those boys, and they just one led to another. But my initial thing through the Johnson boys was Huey Hicks.
Okay.
And he was one had Big Boy, and I think it was the sire, maybe not sire from down from some of the Z-boat stuff was Huey Hicks' old Big Boy dog.
Right.
And that's how Huey called me all the time about the Johnson boys had these dogs, and that's where actually I got both from. He called me and said they had a different kind up there because I was black dogs from Johnson, which was Covey dogs out of La Paz, and Bo wasn't. He's far from being black. He was an old fawn-looking dog, black face and floppy ears, and he wasn't a pretty dog, but he was good at what he was.
Yeah, yeah. It's interesting because the pit bull has been a part of the American history for many years, and people had them just to have them. They didn't. A lot of people didn't do what we did with them, but they were good, solid dog, family pets, or hunting dogs, or protectors, or whatever it was. But it was a very popular dog in the early 1900s, all up until today.
Well, my dad, and it was just old tales, since you brought that up. My daddy, we lived up in Clayton, Georgia, up in the mountains. And when I was about, I don't know, just 4 or 5 year old, and I remember tales about Daddy used to say that he had a big white dog, and some guy come out from the mountains up there and supposed to have been a part wolf, and his dog actually beat the dog, and they set him down right on the main street up there. I think his dog did had his in the back of the truck, and his dog jumped at his dog, and they just stood back and let him go.
Yeah.
And so, like you said, it was just pets back then, but things that happened.
Yeah. A lot of them were mixed. A lot of them.
Yeah.
In fact, I think I refereed one was a pit bull terrier mix.
Yeah.
He won an hour and 9. He lost, but he won an hour and 9, made 9 scratches before he lost. And heck, even people that didn't have pit bulls, like when we were kids, we had German Shepherds, we had cow dogs and mutts and all kinds of stuff. You still fought your dog, just like, just as a matter of course, who's got the baddest dog on the block, or the dogs get into it on their own. So I think every culture does that,
Well, I don't know where many people knew this, even you. Way back when, Alonzo Pratt actually brought them over here. I don't know where he got them from, China or where, but he had actually initiated some Shar-Peis, Chinese fighting dogs, and they wasn't worth a dime. None of them were. But Alonzo Pratt, even the bulldog man he tried to mix some Shar-Peis into them. Of course, you know, Shar-Pei, you could tell the bit mixed into anything, you know what they were.
Right.
But they weren't any good. But even Alonzo Pratt tried to mix Shar-Peis into them.
Mm-hmm.
Way back, you know.
Yeah. Well, you hear that name, Chinese fighting dog, you want to see maybe what it is, you know, and a lot of people did the same with bull terriers and, you know, staffs and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
But,
exactly
you know,
right.
one thing about, I would say most of us is, you know, I think we're lucky if we're known for at least one dog, you know. Everybody got kind of one dog attached to them, you know. With me, it's Big Red. With you, it's Finley's Bo. Even though I know you had a bunch of different dogs, but how did you acquire Bo?
Well, Huey called me up. Like I said, he was the instigator on a lot of it. And, you know, I don't even know what the tale was about the Johnson boys, but he called me up and he told me that had this other dog up there, and he was just kind of different from all the rest of them I'd been getting, because I had been getting some up there, and actually one of them I got from up there actually was the first time, I think it was the first time that Cowboy ever went. I went into him and with a little black dog from up there, and of course Cowboy beat him, but I'm going to tell you, Cowboy didn't annihilate him. I mean, he gave Cowboy a good fight.
Right. That was Midnight Cowboy, right? Midnight Cowboy?
Baker's. Yeah, Baker's Cowboy.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, and that was probably the first one because it was in the early 70s, and I suppose that was probably Cowboy's first one, and it was up here in Gainesville, over there where it was at. But Huey Hughes called me and said that they had this. I went up there and got Bo, and I'll just tell you a little quick thing about Bo. A lot of people, this reason I say to people, wait, and I'm one of the world's worst about waiting, because I've told Rex Bird 100 times, and me and him probably ruined more good dogs. Being taking them up there, rolling them too much, expecting too much out of them at younger age and stuff like that, put bad habits into them and all that kind of stuff. Right. So I bought Bo, get $50 for him. Brought him down here, kept him until like 2 years old. He had a lick at a rabbit, and we wouldn't do nothing. So I give him to a boy down here below me. They wanted a guard dog in a chicken house. So I give him Bo, and about 6 months later, he called me up, wanted to know if I wanted this thing back. Said that he'd done killed 2 or 3 neighbor dogs and cats and every damn thing else and all their chickens, and he didn't want him no more. Just, I'm going to take him to the pound if you don't want him. So I told him, bring him up there. And so he brought him up there, and I went out there in the yard, got me a dog, and I got what he was. He was a pretty good old dog. And when he pulled up in the yard, I just told him I'd turn him out. We turned him out there in the yard, and he just annihilated my dog. Just boom, you know. Yeah. And so I give him $150 for him back. And so that's how I ended up with him. I give him away to start with. And about 2.5 years old, before he ever come to himself, actually.
Right. Yeah. So he was a pup when you got him.
So I was what?
He was a pup when you got him.
Oh yeah. He was a little 8-week-old, 6-week-old pup. You know, little old brunly looking thing. He had so big he couldn't hardly turn it around. You know how that goes.
Yeah, he's very
wormy as hell. You know.
Yeah. I can't. You know what? Back when we were kids, I can't even remember if we ever wormed any of our dogs, and we had working dogs too. So. But, you know, my dad would, one thing my dad would do is
our first wormer, and it worked pretty good, was Atgard, a hard wormer. And it was granulated, looked like ice cream salt. And it was a really good product because you didn't have I have never had any trouble with heartworms. Never had. It may be the location I live in. Right. But you just take Atgard, put just a spoonful, mix it in with a bowl of hamburger, boom, they wormed. Right. And that's all we ever really give them. I'd never give them any phenobutazole, horse wormer, or any of that kind of stuff. And it was always just that, and you know, you'd pick up something else off the shelf somewhere to worm them if they whatever. But actually, I've never had trouble with worms, actually, or fleas or anything else. And I've used anything, and like you said, back in the day, it was just whatever was there. You know, used anything for if somebody has some cotton dust, whatever. Yeah. You know, you just use whatever. Yeah. Sevin dust, everything, anything and everything.
Yeah, I used all that stuff too, and I just wormed them as a matter of course, you know, because you're supposed to. But we never had. I'm like you. I didn't have really parasite problems, worms, or nothing like that, you know.
No.
But my dad was, you know, he's an old country guy, and the horse guys used to do this too, but he'd get chewing tobacco and just shove it down their throat, you know, and just use that.
Well,
he said that
I don't know
wormed
whether
him, you know.
you did this or remember this or not, but now you come up with Ivermectin, and it will cure mange. I've done it on several of them. But it used to be that burnol, and he talking about a mess, burnol, sulfur, I'm trying to think of, what is it, Listerine, tuberose snuff, mix all that together and paint your dog down with that, and it would cure the mange, but it nearly killed your dog too.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
But paint him down with burnol, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And it, like I said, it was a daggone mess.
Yeah.
You know. But I used to do that. Did you ever do that?
I honestly, my dad did all kinds of stuff, and I remember him using oil and some other, maybe asafoetida or something. I don't know, but he, you know, my grandma was kind of a you know, home remedy person, you know.
Yeah.
So she would come up with all kinds of different things for people and the animals too, you know. She made a concoction for.
I think tuberose snuff cured a lot of stuff back then.
Yeah. She made concoctions for fleas or cuts and like that, or if we got sick, she'd make these teas and all that. And come to find out, you know, a lot of the products later on that were developed, they have some of those natural ingredients in them anyways, you know. They use
exactly right.
You know, whatever is in there if you look at it, you know. In fact, a cream that I use is for incontinent people, you know, adults that need to wear diapers, you know.
Right.
And it's this cream you put on them. Well, the cream has aloe vera in it, you know, and my grandma used that for burns and all kinds of stuff. So yeah, there's a
everybody
lot
had everybody had a visible plant.
Yeah.
Plant. You know, everybody had one of those plants.
Especially if you live out in the country or you grow up that way. You ain't going to the doctor all the time. You know, you don't really take the kids to the checkups.
My great grandmother was Comanche from Sherman, Texas.
Okay.
Married to Harris. Yep, married to Harris. We got pictures of her. Married to Harris and moved out here, and they moved up above Cherokee. My grandmother was big lady, worked in cotton fields, hoed cotton all of her life. They was cotton farmers. Granny wore, I'd see her out there with that old sack dress on, the bonnet hat, weighed about 300 pounds, big woman, barefooted. Granny never had nothing wrong with her. Never, no high blood pressure, no nothing.
Yeah.
And people ask me, and I say, you know why? Why? Because Granny never went to the damn doctor.
Yeah.
Granny never, she had Indian blood on her, and she did not believe in going to the doctor.
Yeah, mine was the same way, Apache blood, you know.
Yep.
And she lived into her 80s, you know.
Yeah, well, Granny lived to be 97 years old.
Yeah. Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, 97 years old. Yeah. And she didn't believe in going to the doctor. She did not go to the doctor.
Yeah.
So, you know,
mine either.
I think what we're touching on right there now is actually the same thing. I think we're over doctored nowadays, and we're definitely over penicillin and stuff like that.
Medication.
We're doing too much of that stuff, and that's good for us.
Yeah, that's true because, you know, looking back, you know, my grandma took care of us. You know, she doctored us her own way, and I think what it did is help build up your immunities, and you didn't have a bunch of synthetic or chemicals in you. You know, where you could fight that stuff off naturally. You know.
Yeah. Mama fed us sulfur molasses because it purified your blood.
Yeah, we had cod oil. Cod oil.
Cod liver oil.
Yeah, cod liver oil and all kinds of stuff. So that's interesting. There's something to that, you know.
Yeah. Well, I guess you want to get back to the dogs.
Yeah.
Anyway.
We can. Yeah, this is good talk too. You know, it's good just hearing from you. You know, and I appreciate this.
Yeah.
What style was Bo? You know, there's always I read. You know, I followed his career and all that, and you always read he was a head dog or whatever. But what was that? Was he a kind of all around? Was he a head dog or what was it?
Well, mostly, I mean, he mostly went to chest and head, but Bo's best attribute was he was a hard charger. And I went against Maurice one time against Kendo, and that's exactly how he stopped Kendo. Bo would hit you before you got out of the corner. I just turn around and just throw my hands up there and just woo. And by the time I got the breath out of my lungs, he done hit the other side. He was just boom, boom. And when we matched into Carver, I got to notice, and he got slowing down. Bo was just driving him through the other wall, and so I got to notice he was slowing down. Can't do was, and I had it at James Crenshaw's at James's house in Cummins, Georgia, and Maurice come out there. In fact, Maurice come out there twice. Beat him with Bo, and James after that match. Carver wanted that I got another one can do Iron Wheelie, and so James wanted if I had anything. So James borrowed Polecat from me. I had a little dog called Polecat, and he was out of Duchess and Bo. And so he brought Iron Willie out here, and Polecat made him jump a pit. But anyway, the Polecat was the same way. He was so hard charging that, like I said, he just driving, and I got to noticing that, so I just got to hold him Bo a little more. And at the end of the match, Can Do run over there within 4 foot, put on brakes and stood there and growled.
Yeah,
got carried out.
Yeah, that's the kind of dogs I like, People...
So I think Bo's best attribute was he was just rough as hell. He's just hard charger, and he'd knock you through the wall. And if you didn't brace yourself, you was going to get clobbered.
Well, it's funny that you say I never knew that because, and I had Jeep dogs too. That was my stuff, and they were like that, And you think,
that's what I'm
that's
I think that was one thing he passed down to his siblings was, and let me tell you another thing. One thing about old Bo, I think everything after him was better than he ever thought about being, such as Jeep and Charlie and Holly and this one and that one. Right. And I read a thing this morning about even comes on down from that, like Floyd and stuff like that, and stuff that come out from your part of the country.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yours was was they out of Jeep or what?
Yeah, Jeep and originally Jeep and Rascal Jr.'s sister.
Yeah. And I think that's one thing that Bo passed down. His siblings was actually, what he produced, whatever he sired, they was actually better than he was as far as combat goes.
Right.
But the one thing about Bo, he was just a producer. Because he produced like Magnum and Outlaw and Bronco and stuff like that. He produced those well into his age, because people ask me something about why did we never make that breeding again. Well, I have to tell people time just takes over. By the time you realize what they are, it's basically too late. Now, I don't know where you ever heard this about James or not, but he just wouldn't breed a dog after 5 years old. Mm-hmm. But I guess he should have.
Right.
But he would not. He said that they was inferior pups, and he just didn't like to breed anything over 5 years old. But in turn, James had so much to breed too. He had Rascal, and I've always made this inside joke about James. I've always said that if James had been in the goat business, he'd have had to have some Rascal blood in him, because he was a believer in Rascal. He didn't care what it was. He wanted some Rascal blood in there. Yeah. And so, but he had so much stuff to breed too, Rascal and Jeep and all the other stuff, and just everything from Jeep and all Otis, and I think Otis he didn't get the credit that he deserved. Otis was, he was crazy. He'd bite you in a heartbeat. Yeah. But he was a good dog, and he produced some good dogs.
Sure did.
So I think at the time James just had so much other stuff to breed to, and you can't handle so many dogs. And James probably kept 40 all the time, or 50. I had about 30 on my yard, and that was a big handful.
Right. Yeah. Well, in real time, sometimes you don't think all this stuff, and you have your own way of doing stuff, and that's the way it plays out. Afterwards we can reflect or criticize or whatever, but in real time you ain't really thinking that way. You breed what you like, you got what you like and stuff. I never really did a repeat breeding myself. Maybe I should have, but I didn't think along those lines. And I really didn't breed dogs when they got older either, even though other people took them and bred them and got good dogs. It was just kind of my way of doing it, and in my mind, it's kind of like nature, when they get older, the younger ones kind of push them out, and the older ones don't get bred, whether there's anything to that or not. It was just kind of my way of thinking, and I had good success. Speaking of those breedings, you have Bo the Honey Bunch, that's Jeep, Holly, and Charlie, Missy, and then you have the So-So Boys did real good with it. They had Champion Bronco and Champion Magnum, and then like you mentioned, Duchess had Champion Bully, and
Bad Boy and Joker and just on and on. I don't
Pete
remember
and
that.
Satan and Whitey.
Joe and Satan and I don't know, just on and on. It's so hard to remember. You know, and the papers, everything about us, about papers and everything. What take 50 years ago was a long time to try to remember stuff.
Yeah,
you know,
that's
the
true.
little stuff. You know.
Yeah, they now there. You've heard this before too. That Bo sired at least one champion every time he was bred, and I don't doubt that. But you know, the stuff other than the Jeep dogs I had, the stuff I seen was down from the So Boy stuff. You know, Magnum, and Stone, and Bronco, and all that. You know, Bronco won 3, got 3 best in shows. And one thing I noticed about those dogs is they were smart and fast, and had good balance. You know, and good air. And some of them were rough. You know, that little what was his name, Grand Champion Fritz. You know, he get in the chest and shoulders and stuff. But I just, you know, I admired them because they had good intelligence, you know, and they were quick, you know, fast mouth, quick on their feet, didn't get thrown down a lot, you know.
Yeah.
And
well, that's the reason Harry Hargroves, he liked Outlaw so well. And so there was another one right there, and the thing the Outlaw had, he was just fast. Harry liked the dog was fast. You couldn't say fast too many times. That's what Harry wanted. He wanted speed.
right.
You know, and he would look over lots of other stuff just as long as the dog was fast. Now, Ricky Jones told me that he had Outlaw, and he said Outlaw won about 14. That's what Ricky Jones told me just the other day. I talked to him.
Yeah.
But he told me Outlaw. I said something about Outlaw, and he said, well, Outlaw was one heck of a dog. I said, well, how many do you think you won? He said he probably won 14.
Wow. Well, officially, I know he won 7, and he beat a lot of good kennels. And, you know, I can relate to that speed. I like speed in my dogs, too. I try to keep those two things, speed and strength, in them, you know, because they were kind of the barnstorming type. I liked them fast. And, you know, you can with those two things, you can beat a lot of dogs just because you get the jump on them, and then you're quicker than they are. Their conditioning runs out first. There's a lot of things to it, but you know, I can relate to a lot of that stuff. You know.
Well, I'm a little different. I have no particulars about it. I really don't care what he does. I just so long as he wins. I don't care what it takes him 10 minutes to do it or 4 hours and 10 minutes to do it. I really don't care. One of the best dogs I ever had was Susie, and she probably won. She was on paper about 6 times, and she probably won 8 or 10 because it was just many. But in other words, back in my day, if Pete Sparks wasn't there, it didn't get turned in.
Right.
You know, and it was always if it was juniors and places like that, and up here Gainesville and even up at Earl Adams in Tennessee, if it wasn't, if Pete wasn't there, it didn't get rolled out. Right. But Susie would not run a scratch. She would scare you to death. She would. And like I said, I beat Roy Luter with her. I beat Baggett with her. I beat Billy Collins, Buford Adams. I don't know. There's a list that goes on. It was about 8 or 10. But Susie would. You turn her loose, and she would get up on her toes like a cat, and she'd tiptoe, and scare you to death. James Gray told me, I think she won 8, and she finally didn't make it in the last match. Both of them passed. It was that bad, and went a long time. And Charles told me, he said, I lost every match I bet on that dog. I said, I never bet on her because the way she would walk a scratch, and I lost every time. And he said, the last time I bet on her, I said, this thing can't lose. And she died trying.
Yeah.
But what do you say? I mean, exactly. I would take her, you could turn her loose on the yard, and she would not bother anything. I would go to shows, and Charles come over to me one day. I think I was up in Tennessee. Everybody else is out there, and they got their dogs in the harness, and they got ropes on them, and they're jerking and they pull it. I take a nylon cord, no collar. I take a nylon cord, put it around Susan's neck, and put it around one finger, and I'd lead her all over the yard. And Charles walked up and said, who the hell are you trying to fool? But Susie wouldn't bother nothing if you didn't bother Susie.
Yeah. There's several dogs are like that, you know. And that's a name you don't hear too often. And, you know, me, I like to think I'm somewhat of a historian, and I followed a lot of people. But Charles Gray, he was real active back then, wasn't he?
Oh yeah. He was, and had a lot of background. Charles, and everything. He's a really good competitor, a really good guy. I mean, he was back in the, James and Jerry Holcomb and Kimsey Wood and the whole crowd that was down in this part of the country. And said one time he was a painter, and he do a lot of office paintings in around Atlanta and stuff. And he lived just right below Atlanta there most of the time. I knew him back then. And he attended all the matches around anywhere you'd be. He'd always be there, and he always had some really good dogs.
Yeah. He didn't he lose to Honey Bunch one of his shows?
I think so. Yeah, he did. I'm sure. I can't remember which one that was, but yeah, he did.
Another female she-dog or something, and Joe was another dog. I think he had the. Man, I forget now, but I just remember that name from back in the day. Charles Gray. Somebody told me that ain't even his real name, but who knows,
Well, that was Charles' name. I'll tell you, he's dead and gone now, but I'll tell you one little thing about old Charles and whatever. This is just the background of some of these people that have been around in the years that you've known and everything. And let me first say that old Charles was as good a guy as you ever want to meet. I mean, great guy. Right. Well, they come here from California. And his wife was a wrestler. She was a nice-looking woman and just a nice, friendliest person you ever want to meet. So the wrestling didn't mean anything. But I asked Charles one time. I said, Charles, did anybody ever tell you look like Charles Manson?
No.
He said, well, I should. Said my mom and his mom were sisters.
Oh wow, really?
Yeah, that's what Charles told me.
That's crazy, really. I never knew he was from California.
Yeah, he was from California. Yeah,
okay.
Sure was. Mm-hmm.
What did he move out there for?
Well, he come here as a painter, so I'm just presuming he was out there as a painter. I don't really know what he did out there.
Right,
and I don't even know what part he was from and everything. But she was into the wrestling circuit out there.
Right. Yeah. Well, if he was from
and her name was Bear. They called her Bear.
Bear. Okay. Maybe we can look her up, Google or something. Find out.
Yeah. Well, that had to be in the '60s.
Right. Right. I would say if he's related to Manson, he's probably from Southern California area.
Yeah. If I was the sisters, and I've never heard anything a whole lot about Manson's family or anything other than his grandson.
Right. Yeah. That's crazy.
Yeah. But he looked a lot like old Manson, and I'll tell you the truth now. They're going to say, well, he was crazy. Yeah, he was crazy and nutcase and everything else about it. But he said this. He said, old Charlie didn't do all that stuff. That's them crazy old girls he was hanging out with.
Yeah.
But that was his reply when I said something. He said, I remember it this day. He said, "Oh, Charlie didn't do all that. That was them crazy girls he was hanging with." So
they definitely were that, to do what they did. But you
but I could just go on and on. People's told me about people that sort of thought that people that was really well-known people in the dog business and actually people that they was actually associated with. I mean, it just curl your hair.
Yeah.
To know.
Yeah.
And that don't mean they were that way. I mean, I'm just going to tell you straight up now. I pulled concord all my life, and I hung around with some of the people who was in the dope business and everything else. But I wasn't there for the dope, so the dope never entered my mouth, whatever. And even all that stuff that people go back to, I never give my dogs no kind of hormones, no kind of nothing. I didn't know it, didn't believe in it, whatever, and any of that kind of stuff and everything. But back then, the crowd that you hung around with, a lot of them were pretty shady.
Right. Yeah, I didn't give mine none of that stuff.
But they were good friends. They were friends for life. I still got people I talked to, have been talked to for 50 years.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, something like the dogs or anything really, there's going to be all kinds of people involved.
Oh yeah.
It doesn't mean you agree with them or you do what they do. They're just there because of the dog, so it's kind of the same thing.
That's it. Used to go to Junior Bush's, and it's like going to a church social. Junior didn't allow no dice playing, no card playing, everything. He'd tell you right straight up, you come down here for the dogs. And Junior was a pretty prominent guy. I mean, Junior was a very wealthy guy, and he couldn't afford the problems. So he didn't allow anything going on. And like I said, it was just like going to church social when you went to Junior's. And there was lots of different people there. I mean, Tom Sykes, for instance. I don't know if you remember that name or not, but
sure do.
Tom was one psycho if he's ever been a psycho, and
he was
big
a
old guy,
veteran
weighed
too,
about 300 pounds, and he had a a personal problem or whatever, he would meet you on one side of the building and how you doing? Ain't seen you in a while. Shake your hand. And nice smiling. He'd walk around the building and see somebody didn't like and come back, and it was a whole different Tom.
Oh, geez. Yeah. Well, was he a veteran too?
Who?
Tom Sykes. Was he a veteran too?
I don't remember not. The story about Tom. He got into a robbery and actually killed somebody, and on some technicality, he got off.
Right.
And he hung at juniors in different places and everything. Tom was just one of them guys that he was in the business and everything, and there was a lot of something that way. You just didn't want to mess with Tom. Just leave Tom alone.
Right.
Just if he was, I never had. I'm gonna tell you, I went all over this country, everywhere, from Leo's to North Carolina, all over North Carolina. I was in Easter Sunday morning when Lonzo had that gathering up there in Smithfield, North Carolina in the early 70s and got caught up there. I was at Baker's when he got caught down there when he had that fiasco down there when Bert cut that boy and all that kind of stuff and everything. But I have never had any problems as far as me personally having problems.
Right, yeah.
Never.
Yeah, me either. Now, Junior, he was from Alabama, right?
Yeah, Gunnersville. Yeah.
Yeah, he was known to, he'd use any dog. He didn't care how it was bred, nothing. He didn't consider himself a breeder. He'd just match him whatever.
And he was a multi-millionaire. I mean, many times over, and he owned most of one half of his side of Lake Gunners. They come on his land down in his spot. He owned thousands of acres, and he owned most of one side of Gunnersville, Alabama Lake. And I don't think he ever sold most of it. His daughter ended up with it.
Okay.
Before he died, James called me, and he wanted me and him, and I don't know, Rex, and just some people that used to go to juniors all the time to go down there, and before we got down there, junior got real bad sick, and I just don't think he wanted to see nobody. And then about the same time, James got sick, and so it just fell through. But Junior, he would take a match and didn't care if it was $2 or $100,000. He didn't care. He would tell you, pick your weight because he had that kind of dog. Pick your weight, pick your time, pick your whatever, and pick your money. He didn't care.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, I know.
And I'll tell you something. You went to Junior Bushes back in the day, and the same thing with Leo Goddard's, and the same thing with Earl Adams and stuff. You didn't have to worry about any underhanded things going on.
Right.
They wasn't nothing like that going to happen. They looked after it. They took care of it, and it better not go on because if it did go on, you never would set your butt back in that door again.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. You better keep straight at Junior Bush's place and Earl Adams' place and Leo's place, because if you didn't want to, there'd be some big boys there that escort you right out the door.
Right. Yeah, that's already the trouble that could be involved with the dogs is already there. So why make it worse by having some rowdy there or some problem? So that's good that they were that way. I know.
Yeah.
I know you and James were real good friends, partners maybe, and what was that like, that relationship like?
I'm sorry, I kind of missed a little bit of background noise there. What was that?
James Crenshaw?
Yeah, me and James, you said something about me and James being good friends.
Yeah, good friends, partners maybe?
Well, no, I wasn't actually partners. I just went to James a whole lot. He didn't live about an hour from me and everything, and so I just went to James a whole lot. We traveled a lot together. Now, the last few years and everything, it was everywhere James went, I went, or he went, I went, whatever. We went to, actually, I carried my little bully dog, which was I think it was out of Bo and Duchess, I believe, and went out to Les Filers and beat them. I beat a 2 or 3 time winner they had out there, and so we would go there, and I was with him at that time. We went down to Louisiana. He carried Otis, and Otis bit him all to pieces in his hands and all. And Otis was hard to handle. You carry Otis to the pit, and I remember James at that match had him over his head trying to hold him, because Otis was just trying to bite him everywhere, and so bit him all in the hand. And but we went everywhere together. And Kimsey Wood was on with us at the time, and Bob Bird, he was there, and it was just several of them, and all that we just traveled together, and all the time going to Lester Hughes's, and just anywhere and everywhere. James's whole family always used to go, you know, and I just pile in with them and go, you know. And James's wife, and he had two. The first one was Brenda, and she was the mother of the two kids he had, Mike and Renee. Right. And you know, he lost both of them before he passed. And actually, James passed away 2 days after they buried Renee.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember that. Yeah, that was
that
situation.
I went to the funeral out there. Renee's. It was out here in Cummins, and James shook my hand, and couple of things he said to me right there at the end. I knew I never would see James again. And Casino said the same thing. Right. And I think he just, after that, he just give up. And he never got over Mike. Mike, he found Mike the next morning in a Jeep down there, and he was supposed to be out at night. And James, I think, went to sleep. He usually wait up on him, and he went to sleep. He told me he woke up 6 o'clock. Mike went home. So we were looking for him. He found him down there. Jeep was still running. He's marred down in the mud, and carbon monoxide got him.
Mm.
Yeah. That was when the boy was about 14 years old, something like that.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Yeah, so James never got over that, and then when Renee passed, I think he just gave up.
Yeah, I can understand that. You know, that's,
oh, yeah.
Man, how do you deal with it? There's no words, really, you can say, you know, just that it's, man, that's tough, you know.
Yeah.
But he's certainly, you know, world-renowned, produced a lot of good dogs, had a lot of champions, a lot of competition, win, lose, all that, you know, known as being a great competitor and a good person. You know, a lot of people knew him, you know, a lot of people would visit him, you know.
Well, I think most of the people that didn't like James was actually just pure and simply jealous of him. Right. Because James was a good guy. He was a friendly type person. He was very knowledgeable about stuff. He didn't mind talking to nobody. And I was seen talking, and several times. I mean, one time a guy from Russia come over and stayed with him a while and everything, and actually learning about the dogs and all that. And he was just, I mean, he knew everybody all over the country, you know. He lots of people down in Louisiana, and he knew, and everybody just knew James. And like I said, I believe if you had problems with James and everything, I think it was just jealousy more than anything else. Because, and a lot of people don't realize James is very successful with the dogs, but James earned it. James spent more time with dogs than anybody would ever realize. When he would match a dog, actually, he would quit work. He was a meat cutter, and then later on he went to work for Tyson Chicken Place down there. But he was a meat cutter, and he would actually just quit work for a month or 2 months, and he would stay with his dog. He would walk just practically all day long. The dog would stay together. Told me one time he was walking 18 miles, morning and night. Yeah, morning and night. Had trouble with his knees and goes to the doctor, and the doctor asked him how much you walk, and he said, well, about 18 miles. He said, that going, drop it off to about 8 and you'd be okay. Yeah. You know, but that's what he was doing. And he would walk him, and the dog would stay with him, sleep with him, in the house with him all the time. And he just spent lots and lots of time and money on these dogs.
Right. Very dedicated.
I mean, his dogs got fed the best of the stuff. He didn't do what I was saying do about getting the heartworm or no. He went to the vet and he got the best stuff, the heart guards and stuff, it's expensive stuff, and he didn't take no shortcuts at all.
Yeah, that's dedication, and that's what it takes. Dedication, hard work, a love for the breed, you know. You can't hardly knock them. You know, everybody, there's always somebody ain't gonna like you, you know. You kind of ignore it, don't worry about it, and just do what you do. You know. But there's no doubt he's world renowned. You know, and you know, kind of the same with you. Now I'm glad you're kind of doing this now. People get to know, you know, about your time in the breed and all that. Another female, you know, we talk about Duchess. You've mentioned her and this and that. What was she like?
Well, she was a little brindle dog, and I think she weighed about 40 pounds around that. And I matched her several times, and in fact, we went to Leo's, and I matched against Jerry Holcomb, and he was a little Icky dog one time, and she beat Icky. And Duchess she was out of Prima, Tom Schultz's Prima, which was, now I can't think whether it was Prima's mom or Prima herself, but one of them was out of Maloney's tooth 3 times. And there was Jeremiah stuck in there. Now, I don't know whether that was Holtz Jeremiah or Schultz and them had a Jeremiah. I just don't really remember. Right. But now, they was all tied into out there in Gainesville at that time. That's where Ronnie Hyde lived at the time, and he was a straight up carver man. And Jerry Bale lived out there. Him and Tom was actually in together on Prima and all. And Prima, I saw Prima go one time, and she was as game as it gets. I mean, she crossed on broke legs, you know,
Right.
and she was really, really, really game. So, I got Duchess from Tom out there. That's how Duchess was bred. And she was a rough little dog and everything. And now I lost her. I think she won 2 or 3. Then I don't have no idea. Never had it happen before or after. I went home one day and she was wrapped up in the chain. Like you couldn't have wrapped her up no tighter. So I don't know where she had a heat stroke and just rolled in and wrapped her up in the thing, or she got tangled up in the chain, which I've never had one get tangled up in the chain.
Right.
You know, and never had that happen. So I don't really know how. I think she had a heat stroke, you know, and just wrapped herself up. Anyway, that's how. I lost her early, you know, but she had several litters of pups, but I still lost her relatively early, you know.
Well, the Peds Online thing has her by Holtz Jeremiah and Beal Sue. And did
Jerry Beal have a Jeremiah?
No, it was Raymond Holt that had Jeremiah.
Yeah. Well, it might have been that. It might have been Jeremiah. It was Prima's sire, because, like I said, Ronnie Hyde, he was a straight up carver man, and that's where, you know, some of the toot stuff and all that kind of stuff. I didn't actually not do carver, but up that way, you know.
Yeah. The sometimes the online stuff, it's not accurate, you know, or people just write what they think, or they get the wrong information. But it does have her as being a heavy tooth female on the bottom, you know.
Yeah.
She was like father-daughter bred off the tooth.
Yeah.
And you know, that was some of the people talk about it all the time. They call it, you know, Dibo Black Widow or Zeke Black Widow or you know, Spike Black Widow stuff. Real popular stuff. Real game dogs, rough dogs, you know, good mouth and all that, you know.
Yeah.
And it's always interesting because I remember Duchess from back in the day, but I didn't know a whole lot out of her, you know. About what she was.
She was a good little dog, and she produced a lot of good dogs herself.
Yeah.
Just her and Bo. So Bo's the only thing I ever bred to. I never sold a puppy. Now a few of them got away, and then later on they show up like somebody had won a champion or something, some Cooper or something like that, and then 2 or 3 more. The guy up in Tennessee, I heard later on, and the dog had done real well. I forgot that dog's name, but I never sold a puppy. I never did. I just breed and keep the whole litter, you know, and that's what I would do and everything. That's the dogs that I used. I always had 30 or 40, but let's just say I had 40 dogs in my yard. Every dog in my yard went back to Bo.
Right.
I mean, that's the only thing that's the only stud dog I bred to. And I don't know why, because Butcher was a good dog and Joe was, and I had several was really, really good dogs. And first one thing, nothing. Just like old Susie, she was probably an 8-time winner. Right. Now, you tell me why I didn't get no pups out of Susie. You tell me. I don't know.
I don't know. How many did Bo actually win?
I tell you the truth, Bo probably won 8. Now he's matched up for 6 and lost 1. But in my opinion, he didn't lose. But still, that's the way it's wrote up. Right. But Bo, we had 2 or 3 more matches. The one in Gainesville against Ronnie Howington, that wasn't never thing. And I don't know whether the one with Carver was ever wrote up or not. Right. But Bo probably won 8 at least. Then, and they wasn't off no chain either.
Right. I mean, then quote unquote lost the one to Vindicator, right?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
We won't get into that, but he lost one to Vindicator. Yeah. And I'm gonna kind of emphasize on that just a little bit since it came up. Everybody say, you know, about he lost. Well, I always ask this question: if you think for 1 minute that James Crenshaw, I got 2 or 3 other little things I could throw in there right quick that would just kind of boggle your mind about, well, why? You know, why? But if you think James Crenshaw would have bred the best bitch in the world to a loser, then I guess you don't know much about bulldogs.
Yeah, exactly. You know, that's kind of, I told a story not too long ago, you know, about a dog, and he lost real game in 2 hours and 20 minutes. Made a screaming scratch, courtesy scratch, you know. Mm-hmm. And somebody else said, that dog quit. And I tell him, look, that dog on that night, the guy who bought him, he was buying him from the guy who matched him, right? The guy who bought him was sitting there watching him. Do you think he would have bought the dog if the dog quit right in front of his eyes, you know? And it's just, you know, people see things or they hear things or whatever, you know.
Yeah, people was there. Bo stood the line, but when I walked over, let me tell you, Bo had never tried to bite nobody in his life. He was not a biting dog. And when I went over to pick him up, he tried to bite me.
Right.
Well, that's when I first turned him loose. Well, then I went back to pick him up. He tried to bite me again. I carried to put him in the car and in the box. I went back an hour later, and he tried to come out on me then.
Yeah.
So that's just another little story. But let's just presume he lost. But the thing I've always said about that is, look what he achieved after that. And then let me just throw this in. And I read an article about that. It said how many fanciers, young fanciers, would have bred a dog that had quit. Well, my question is, what would happen if I'd give up on Bo? If I just put him down right then and said, well, you quit, I'll put you down. Then how many good dogs would not have showed up if it had been for Bo?
That's a good point. And,
so
and he won after that too, didn't
I should say he quit. I think he made up for it later on.
Right. And he won matches after that too, didn't he?
Oh yeah. Vindicator, I think, was second or third match. Yeah, and he won. Like I said, he went on to beat J. Alexander and crossed the pit 23 times. He was cut bad. When we turned him loose, he went across the nose and he was bleeding like a stuck hog. And everybody said, "Pick him up, pick him up, pick him up." Well, he changed his way of doing things. He would just take him to corner and he was just fighting. He settled down and he stopped. And he was just looking forward, not wasting any energy whatsoever, and everything. So I said, nope, ain't gonna do it. So I didn't pick him up, and so he went across the pit 23 times and stopped J.E.'s dog, and J.E.'s dog before that match, he had went somewhere. He had crossed the pit like 23 times, you know. So it was a good dog he was going against.
That one went like 2 hours and 11 minutes, didn't it? Against J.E. Alexander, didn't that go?
Yeah, it went over 2 hours.
Yeah, over 2 hours. Yeah, I remember.
Yeah, 2 hours or something. Yeah.
So, well, there's no question he was a great dog, and you know what happens is the people that get him, they damn sure like him, you know, because there's a lot of stuff off of him, read down from him that people use.
Yeah, let me just throw one more little thing in. You know, I never put a dog down in my life for quitting. I'd give it away for a hog dog or this or that or that or that. Right. I believe people are a little bit off cue about there's no stopping. There's a stopping point to everything and everybody and everything. You can't tape us so much. I mean, let's just say me and you. I was in Vietnam. Say if I got caught prisoner of war, you say, well, I wouldn't have talked for no other thing. I guarantee you, after they got through pulling your fingernails out and doing all this kind of stuff, you'd talk.
Yep.
You know, at a certain point in time, you're going to give up.
Yep.
You know, the body can't take so much where it's a bulldog or where it's a human. So
yeah, every living creature, man or animal, is flesh and blood, and you know, people say they ain't machines. Well, hell, if you don't oil a machine, it break down too. You know, so everything has a stopping point. You know, and you know, that's a good point, because I know other people, you know, and you know, sometimes I talk rough or I talk hard about dogs or whatever, you know, but I never knock nobody that you know, I tell them, if you don't want to put your dogs down or you want a yard full of cur, that's your business. There's nothing wrong with that. If you love dogs, you love dogs. And I have more than a couple of friends. They you know, back then, you know, if they stopped or whatever, quit or whatever, they just give them away. They give them away as pets. One guy gave them to people that use them for hunting hogs, you know. So they had a purpose. They had some use, and I don't knock nobody for that. You know, I'm not that mean and cruel and
well,
judgmental.
I'm going to tell you another thing. I really don't care what nobody thinks about it one way or the other about it. I had to put a couple of them down. A little Ace, I went against Jerry Walter. Ace he wasn't about 2 years old, and then I come to find out when we got there, I was going against Powell, and Powell was about a 3-time winner. Well, it went on about well over 2 hours, and they was laying there in Holtz, and Pete Sparks was there, and it was in guys when it was cold, steam was coming up off of them, and all that kind of stuff. And so Pete, everybody, the crowd was getting, antsy, and so Pete said, why don't y'all just call it a draw and try to save them, because it's going to tell how much, maybe 2 hours, 3 hours, like I said, everybody was freezing, and other dogs was getting behind, you know what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
And so we decided to try to draw. Well, Val died just right there, and Ace, 2 weeks later, because of his injuries, I had to put Ace down.
Mm.
Well, I picked up that gun 3 times. I put him down. Something. My daddy was there, and he said something about, well, I can't put him down, and you mean whatever. I get somebody else to do it or whatever. I said, no, Daddy's my dog. I'll put him down. Every dog that I have ever had to put down, I put him down, and I do it with a 22, and he don't never know it. He don't never feel it. He don't nothing. I don't carry him no veterinarian, because you carry him veterinarian, he knows what you're carrying the veterinarian for. So I pick up the gun 2 or 3 times and stuff like that, and lay it back down, pick it up and lay it down. And when I finally pull the trigger, I don't mind telling anybody, shit, I turn and cry like a damn baby.
Yeah.
I don't care who knows it.
Yeah.
I care about my dogs.
Right.
I always have.
Yeah. If you don't have compassion, then you're not a human. Not then we're all just sociopaths or something like that.
No. I was when I was in that pit with those dogs, I was swinging every time they swung. I was biting every time they bit. I was there.
Yeah.
A lot of people say, "Oh, well, I can get down there with them get bit." I was right there on top. I was right there. I never got bit.
Yeah.
And I wasn't going to take him in there and throw him down and say, "Hey, you go at it." No. Us go at it.
Yeah. You have to have a certain responsibility, and now I never
if you don't
worried
do your
about my
part, you
dogs.
can't expect him to do his.
Yeah, I never worried about my dogs biting me. I get right in their face or get right close to
Oh,
them
yeah.
and stuff. They know what they're doing. They're focused on their job, and it's a friendship and it's a partnership, and you a team, and you gotta stick with your team. That's just the way it is.
Yeah. You and your buddies go off somewhere and get jumped. You don't want to be left by yourself.
That's
do you?
right. That's right. Yeah. Now, what are I know you've been around a lot. You've seen a lot of good dogs. What are some of the other good dogs you've seen during that time back then?
Well, I don't know if there's any good way to tell all of them. I mean, it's just on, and my memory's probably not good enough or whatever. But just bringing to think of all the ones James had, and then Rex Bird had just several good ones, and Jerry Hogan had Pool Hall Red, and there was then Jerry. Speaking of Jerry, he had Pharaoh and We Hunt and this and that one, and I don't know. They was just and then say I was around. I saw Boomer go twice, and there was Boomer and Chivo and Cowboy and just Howard Teal was around. Me and Rex Bird just go to Howard Teal's lots and drink coffee with him, have him feed his dogs and all, and he used to feed, and he'd take that jar of Val Cert and turn it up, take him a big swallow of it, and all those people. So I really, I have seen so many and many and many and many. I don't know where you can distinguish which was the better or the good. There was all really lots and lots and lots of. Yeah. I would say. The ones that made it to the pits, like Junior Bushes and Earl Adams and people like that. Now, backyard and stuff, that's something else. But ones that made it to the pit, I don't know how you can choose the good ones. There was no bad ones, actually, if you want to know the truth about it.
I never could. I'm asked that all the time. What's the best dog you've seen and the gamest dog you've seen? And I don't have an answer. There's so many of them. And like you said, there's so many of them. There's certain ones that stick out for whatever reason. But there's so many that were good too, and sometimes you just forget about them. One time I was talking to a friend, and I was going over some old shows, and I asked my buddy, I go, "Do you remember this match here?"
Yeah.
And he goes, "Yeah, of course." I said, "I don't remember." He said, "Richard, you were there."
Yeah.
I said, "Really?"
Yeah.
And then I talked about this female. Do you remember this female? Her name or whatever. He goes, "Richard, you bred that dog,"
Yeah.
So
yeah.
it gets that way where you don't, you see so much and so many, you even forget your own damn dog sometimes, And,
well, I do that all the time. In fact, I can't think his name. Who is it up in North Carolina? I hadn't heard his name in a long time, and I should have wrote his name down, but I remember. Ed Mullins. He sent me, and I don't even know where he is, still alive or not, but he sent me a thing a few years ago about was all these dogs mine and everything, and I couldn't even remember some of them, you know, and I think when you have so many over the years, I mean, you probably had more than I have, but when you're talking about a couple hundred dogs, a few of them just stick out in your mind,
right?
You know, and some of them don't. Now they was pretty good old dogs and everything, but I got a couple old brindle dogs, and I think they might have been out Duchess and Bone or whatever. But the only reason I remember them two hard heads is those things was nutcases. They wouldn't lead. They never learned to lead. They never learned to do nothing. One of them would work. One of them wouldn't work. I don't give a daggum what. You could took him on the end of a rope and drug him across the yard. Yeah. He wouldn't work. Yeah. You know, and they was just, but they was good dogs. Each one of them won. In fact, James used a joker one time himself, and James used Polecat for me. He used Joe that I had, and all. But just certain ones stick out in your mind, and certain just don't. And I don't know why.
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah. How many did Polecat win?
I think Polecat won about 3, and Polecat got poisoned. He went down. Yeah, yeah. That was another one. They got he just got poisoned. That's what happened to him.
Yeah.
But he won. I think he won 3. I matched him against somebody. I don't even remember who that was either. And then, like I said, James borrowed him, and if you're looking, James really liked old Polecat. I don't know why we'd ever bred Polecat. If you ever see James's den in there, he's got all these dogs around and everything. If you look on there, they'll look big-headed, and he's totally black and white, black is black and white is white, hanging on his wall. That was Polecat.
Nice.
That was my dog.
Yeah, I seen pictures of him. He sure was a good-looking dog,
He was. I never had. He had big old lips. He was hard. He was easy to get fanged.
Yeah.
But he was a hard charging and a strong dog.
Yeah. Yeah.
I never had. The reason I named him Polecat, old boy come to the house one time, and he was in a litter right there behind, and I believe he was. I think that might have been Duchess' first litter. I believe it might have been. But he picked him up and said, "Shoot, this thing smells like a Polecat." So I named him Polecat.
That name stuck. Yeah. I like them patch dogs or black and white dogs or, like that. But I never really had none, Yeah. But to me, they're just good-looking dogs. The way their markings are,
Yeah. Well, they said he always. Other people used to talk. I don't know where it comes from. They said he was just out of Kobe stuff. Said he was probably a throwback to although. Kobe stuff when there was picture and stuff like that. They was all black and white dogs.
Yep, they sure were. A lot of them. They were black and white, brindle and white. Most of them had white on them. They weren't really solid colored dogs. But just very unique looking. Good bone structure. Nice heads on them. Stuff kind of like them old timey dogs.
Yeah. But, that's the same thing they said about Bo, though. They said, I read somewhere somebody said that Bo was probably a throwback to Dime. Said that Dime's brother looked just like Bo.
Oh, okay. That makes sense. He's definitely...
That's something I read somebody. The question was, well, why in this world did Bo look like Bo looked when he's out of La Paz, Dubs and Dot, and they're just totally black, and everything else is black, and 99% is black.
Right.
And here come Bo. He's old, dirty-looking dog and black eyes and black muzzle and whatever. What pretty dog.
Yeah.
And how did he turn out like that? Well, he said it was probably a throwback.
Yep, probably is. They kind of say the same thing about Boudreaux's Eli. Eli this and that. He's black. His parents weren't. Whatever. And if you look at his pedigree, Lena is in there. She was a black dog, so that's where that color could be coming from. When you breed dogs, there's so much behind the genetics and so many dogs behind them. Anything could come up at any time, And if you do some research, you can pretty much figure out where it comes from, or somebody that's done it for you, can tell you, hey,
Well, I'll ask you a question.
Yeah.
And don't misunderstand if I'm great dogs, great breeder and everything. Let me throw that in for something else that's said. But Tom Garner's, I went to Tom Garner's, and he's got this pens full of puppies and everything, and he's got all of and about 99% are black. Mm-hmm. And then there's always like one or two red ones in the litter and everything. Well, back in my day, they was totally different. Back in my day, you'd have a litter of pups, and there'd be one black and white one black, one red, two brindle. So what do you suppose changed all that?
Well, I'll say this, and I'll use my friend as example. Myself and my friend, when you put black in there, because it's a dominant color, it comes out, right? Even if you breed to a buckskin bitch or a red bitch or whatever. So the black will become dominant, and that happened with my stuff. My dogs were red and buckskin mainly, right?
Yeah.
And I bred to a black dog, but even in that litter, I only got one black dog, and the rest were red and buckskin. So my friend acquired my dogs. He threw some more Eli in there and Bully Son, this and that. They all started coming out black. Most of them black. Well, through the years, he's breeding the same family of dogs, but now, later on, they started reverting back to that red and buckskin. Even if he bred two black dogs together, most of the litter would come out red and buckskin, And he kind of tripped on. He said, Richard, they're going back to what they originally were. And I think that's just a pattern that happens within a family of dogs, that something will take over, but if you continue, they can revert back to what they originally were. So maybe that has something to do with it,
Just more or less the same thing I said a while ago, throwbacks.
Yeah, throwbacks, like that. Because where else is it coming? Not only that, they built like my dogs were, same color, red, same buckskin, black mask, or blonde buckskin, like that, So it has a way of coming around again, That's what I would guess. Anyways, I'm not a geneticist, but it just that pattern.
Well, I don't know what exactly brought all the blacks from Boudreaux, but one thing I read a while back about mostly Boudreaux's dogs are going to be black.
Right. Yeah. They were, and like I said, that influence was put into my stuff, and they did come out black, and they were mostly black. But as time went on, same dog, same that. Even he would throw other Bully Son dogs in there, black Bully Son dogs, and some were Eli crossed with
totally black, was he?
What's that?
Bully Son wasn't totally black, was he?
Well, they have that red tint to them,
Yeah, that's what I'm talking. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Just that old dirty reddish looking, wasn't he?
Yeah, kind of like that. Yeah, you're right. And and if we were color geneticists, we could probably figure it out how it comes out, because depending on how you mix the colors and all that, you can get this and that. And I tell people this: if you're a painter, to make black paint, you need yellow, blue, and red or something like that. It's not even a lot of dark colors, and that's what makes black. So there's something to how the colors within the breed, the dogs and all that, are mixed for them to come out the way they come out. Like you get black and tan, or you get tricolored and stuff like that. It's just a mixing of the colors, and the patterns will come out however they come out. So.
Well, you're right about that, because I got row house and stuff, and I do my own painting and stuff. And I'll take 3 or 4 gallons of paint, and if I'm just going to paint one house or another, I'll mix 5 gallons of every damn thing in the world. Well, if you don't want blue, you best not put no blue in there, because once you put the blue in there, it's going to be blue.
Right.
It's going to be light blue or gray blue or blue, but it's going to be blue. It's going to be blue. And so, and I've had other people talking about I read an article the other day about the blue people. Well, you was in the same time I was. I never knew the blue existed till about the latter middle 70s, and I've always heard that was because they bred the staff into them.
Yeah, that could. And it could be, again, talking about throwbacks, that blue paw stuff that was brought in from Wales and Scotland, even though they discontinued with the dogs for whatever reason, years later that color could still come out. But now, in today's times, I think when the blue comes out like that, it has some of that staff blood in it,
Well, I never had one because it was taboo in my day to have a blue.
Yeah. I seen one way back in the day. It was funny because he was blue, actually blue. He wasn't gray or seal colored.
No, it was blue.
He was blue,
Yeah.
and he had dark blue patches on him. It was weird as heck, you know.
Right.
So
Right.
I guess it come out. He was a mean son of a bitch too.
Yeah, and blue in it. Did many people wanted white.
Yeah.
And my daddy always had whites, but didn't many people want a white.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. That was them too. In fact, we had a bloodline out here started by Bill Petrie and Jim Moore and some old dog guys. Steve Hendricks ended up with it, and Randy, and a lot of guys had it. They were called the White Dogs, you know. And they were a lot of them were predominantly white, you know, pure white, you know. And then you had black and white. You had some of them were buckskin like that, but they were called the White Dogs because Moore's Champion White Bandit, you know, he was named after the cartoon character. He had the 2 black patches on his eyes, over his eyes, but he was predominantly white. And then Petrie had 2 females, Ma and Sandy, and they were off of Crenshaw Carver's Snow, and he was a white dog. So that white kind of took over with a lot of them, and they were so popular that everybody just started calling them the White Dogs. So that's how that came about, you know.
Right.
People don't really like that color anymore, but heck, I had a lot of respect for them dogs. They were game as heck, you know.
Yeah. Well, like I said, my daddy had them, whatever, and they were pit bulls, and I checked back on them later on. The old guy up here in Dakota had the dogs, and I never did find out what line there was. Nobody know. He was already passed on.
Right.
I talked to his son. He just remembered his daddy having the dogs, and my daddy bought 2 or 3 over the years from him, but he worked for the county up there, worked at the courthouse, and I never did, like I said, know where they was. Now, Armitage, I think, had whites back then, didn't he?
Yeah, because he had Kager. And Kager was almost all white, so he had a lot of white dogs, or white and red or something like that. But some of them, Lena and them dogs that he had, even the dogs off of Pincher. Pincher was black and white, you know, white with black on him. So
Well, I don't know about you, but you just mentioned that. I tell you what's the truth. That to me, that's the prettiest dog I ever seen in my life.
Oh man, beautiful.
He's got a cat look to him. He just looks so, I don't know. Pincher to me is just a good looking animal.
Some of them old dogs, you look at him and you go, man.
Pincher and Twister. They were really, really good looking dogs. I mean, long legged, got a cat looking head on them, and just, I mean, they just look to me. They look savage to me. Really.
Yeah, me too. You know? Me too. You don't see a lot of dogs looking that way. You know, you look at those and you go, wow. It's kind of like I look at old pictures of the cattle way back in the day. You know.
Oh yeah.
Man, they look different. You know, like they got a lot of meat on them. They look like a wild animal. You know, they're not like the cows we see today. You know.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly.
Yeah.
And but anyway, anything you need to know? Whatever.
Well, that's a good thing you mentioned that. I think I got plenty. We can do this again, Bob, and I really appreciate you doing this for me. A lot of good information, a lot of good history, and I think I'm going to end the interview now. But like I said, I appreciate it, and the subscribers will sure appreciate it. And you know, I can't say thank you enough, my friend.
Okay. Well, all right. Well, let me say one thing to you. I was just looking up some stuff and everything. I really got to call him. That's Jerry Bill. I didn't realize that Jerry Bill owned the sire to Lonzo's Angie, and that was the dam of Zebo.
Oh, okay. That's interesting to know. Is he still alive, Jerry Beal?
Yeah. I talked to him not long ago, and all he had talked to whole lots of people and everything. But somebody else had his number, and I told him, called him, I asked him, I said, would you tell him I'd like to talk to him and everything? He said, yeah, he'd like to talk to him. He said he'd give me his number, so I called him, talked to him. I need to call him again. But I didn't realize that Jerry went that far. See, Jerry actually, like I said, when Duchess and stuff like that and everything, and I don't know why I told you that little tale about Honey Bunch or not, but I think the people out there in that part of the country, I personally believe they knew what they was talking about.
You're right.
But who knows where he goes, and know you starting that because
get a hold of him, talk to him, and then next time we do this, we'll have some more information about that. You know, and
yeah.
get what you
And
can from them.
I tell you, another thing, I talked to. I don't know what I told you this now, but I was supposed to be getting a pup from um, golly, can you think of that? Larry Bow.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Larry Bow. Do you know Larry?
Not really.
Okay, well, he's in Montana. So James carried a couple of pups out there to him and give them to him when by the time James got sick. And they was directly off of Gator. But the last two was Tommy Pete's, two Tommy Pete, Goldie and something else. I forgot what it was, but it was good dogs. I talked to Tommy the other day, and all. And but anyway, I was supposed to about the 1st of July. I was supposed to be getting a pup from him.
Mm. Okay.
So and it goes back to Gator, and
Yeah.
he says it's probably the heaviest thing in Gator that is alive.
Nice, nice. Yeah, my friend saw Gator when he beat champion Chambuca. He said he was a real game dog, good dog. But you know, we do this. I get invited every year to this old timers get together in Arkansas, and maybe you can make it out that way, Bob, this year.
Well, I don't know why. I guess I don't know what I told you just not. I know you talk to everybody just like me. You can't remember half what people tell you, but I talked to G Bean not long ago, 2 or 3 weeks ago, and he told me they was going to have that thing. He didn't know exactly when November is going to be. 2 or 3 people he talked to, I think Casino was one of them. They was going to have some kind of dog show or something out in that part of the country or somewhere and all that kind of stuff, and a lot of people going to be attending. So he didn't want to have it on that date. And that was I think the same date they had it last year. But yeah, I'm going to go, and I talked to Danny Burton really a lot, and Danny said he was going to try to live long enough to get there. That's what he said.
Good, yeah.
You know, and all, and he, I'm gonna come this year. I don't care what. I'm gonna come this year, and there's a lot of other people that you know.
Yeah. Casino goes. Leander Daigle was there last time. Ronnie Duhan, rest in peace, was there. He's gone now, but you know, Jim Stinson, Danny Burton. You know, a lot of different people. Not Horace Daigle, but I think Holly Shirley was there. You know, a lot of old.
Well, she was a good friend of James and everything. Older lady and everything. Really a dog woman. What was her
name? Marion Strong.
Yeah.
She was there.
I think
Mike
she was there.
there.
Somebody said she was in pretty bad health.
Yeah, she's going blind, I think. Yeah. She looked good, you know, as far as physically, but she couldn't see real well. So you know, everybody getting older, Bob, and we got to get together whenever we can. So
we all getting older. I'm 77.
You know,
so
you look a lot better.
I'll be 77 in September.
You look a lot better than I do, and I'm younger than you. So
yeah. Well, hope we all make it.
Yes, sir.
Anyway, but I'm supposed to be getting that dog. Well, let me tell you one more thing. I think whatever I kind of put two people back together. I don't know exactly what it was when Tommy got caught, but it was kind of a thing. This one said that one said this, or this one said that. It was just a misunderstanding about stuff. Come find out it didn't, but I think Tommy kind of blamed Larry Bow of saying something that kind of put him in the limelight when he got caught and had to go to jail. Anyway, I talked to Larry, and I'd already talked to Tommy. Tommy still has some books, James's books, and so I bought some of them.
Oh, yeah.
And most of them I've been I didn't give them. Well, you sent me a book, and I sent you a book. So I sent you one. I sent Harry Hargroves one. I sent Pat Patrick one. You know, and I feel like that James and other people like y'all have them, then they're sitting in here on the shelf somewhere.
Yeah,
you know.
True.
And so that way, so Tommy, I knew Tommy had some, so I called him, and in fact, I bought a case from him.
Okay.
And so
it's a good book. Definitely part of history.
Huh?
It's a good book. Definitely part of history. You know.
Yeah. And so I just bought them while he had them or whatever. But anyway, I said something to Larry Bow, and Tommy said something about me. That back then, and Larry tried to call him 2 years ago and whatever, and he just was mad at the time, and I wish I'd talked to him, blah, blah, blah. So I just happened to be talking to Larry, and I told Larry, I said, I talked to Tommy Feet the other day, and I said, I'm just going to tell you something. But let me go ahead and tell you this. I told Tom, we was talking about things, and I told Larry, I said, I'm going to tell you the way I am, Larry. I don't have no enemies nowhere. Now, if me and this goddamn problem, we're going to step outside and we're going to fight, fuck, or whatever goddamn do, we're going to get the problem solved. I'm not going to avoid you every time we walk into a damn place. I'm not going to have, I was in business, and I'd walk out of any business. I'd walk into one concrete company and make a call to another one. And if you didn't like it, you didn't like it. But I never had picked sides with nothing. You know what I mean? I never closed no doors. I never burned no bridges behind me, because you may want to cross that bridge again. Right. So that's why I've always been about that. So I mentioned Larry. I said, Tommy said something about he wanted me to know if I give you your number, could I get I give him your number. And he said, well, give me Tommy's number. I'd like to call him. I wish I'd call him. I'd love to talk to Tommy. And so there was two old dog people that hadn't spoken about 30 years now. And I texted back Tommy last night and said, did you ever talk to Larry? And he said, yeah, I just got through talking to him. Thank you.
Well, good. Well, good. Yeah, there's, you can fix problems, if you and you don't want that kind of stuff on your conscience.
No.
I think that's a good way to be.
If I got done a problem with somebody, I'm just gonna walk right up to you and say, look, whatever it takes to get this problem over with and done. I'll say, and you ain't goddamn tell me you sorry, and I ain't gonna tell you. I think that's the worst way to end a confrontation. Well, you tell me you sorry, and we'll get back. No, I ain't telling you I'm sorry, and you ain't goddamn tell you I'm sorry. Hey, just don't mention it no more.
Yeah.
Just let it go.
That's very
let
good.
It go.
Very good advice.
Let it go. Just start talking again like friends, and everything will be fine.
Yeah. With that, we'll end this. Thanks a lot. That's some good advice, Bob. And again, thanks for doing this interview. And we'll talk
that's
soon,
what you got to be. But anyway, I'll let you go unless you're busy, man. Let me ask you one more question I asked you yesterday.
Yeah.
You say you do this for a living and everything. Do you get contributions? Do you need any money for stuff like that? I know it costs you to do all this stuff. How do you make money?
Well, the way this channel works is I post the videos. People watch them, and YouTube puts ads on there, right? So I get a percentage of the money from the ads. That's how this is made. The money's made from here. The other thing is I do another show with some other dog men. It's called Patreon, and that people subscribe to that. That's $10 a month. It's called 78 Sports Dog Talk, and that's
I don't even know where I can get on that. I've seen it one or two times, but I tend to miss that whenever it comes on, and. Anything you got going on, anything going on, if you'll text me or something and tell me how to get tuned into it. I'm not much of a computer person. I'll just be straight up and tell you about all that. Gotcha. So, if I can do it a simplicity way, I can get into it, but I'm just not I'm a hands-on person.
Yeah, no, I understand, and I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Bob, ever since we met, you've been nothing but supportive, and, that sometimes that's good enough for me. I'm good with that, but... once again, thanks. And
I appreciate it.
All right, you take care.